Welcome to this session of the Empowerment Zone. Our guest is Joseph Shrand, MD. Dr. Shrand is an instructor of psychiatry at Harvard Medical School and the medical director of CASTLE, which stands for Clean and Sober Teens Living Empowered. It's a brand new intervention unit for at risk teens, which is part of the highly respected High Point Treatment Center in Brockton, Massachusetts. Dr. Shrand is triple board certified in adult psychiatry, child and adolescent psychiatry, and a diplomat of the American Board of Addiction Medicine. Currently, he also teaches psychiatry residents in training as a member of the Brockton, Massachusetts staff. He is also the medical director of Road to Responsibility, a community based program that tends to adults with significant developmental disability and serves on various boards involved in national mental health issues as well as global fair trade concerns. We've invited Dr. Shrand to come on the show today because he's got a very interesting area of research, and he's come out with a book that I believe we can all benefit from, which is called Outsmarting Anger: 7 Strategies for Diffusing Our Most Dangerous Emotion. And it just came out in March. So, Dr. Shrand, welcome to the Empowerment Zone.
My goodness, Paula, thank you so much. It's hard to believe that you're really talking about me.
By the way, listeners, I must warn you, Dr. Shrand is very interesting and very personable. I think you're going to really enjoy what it is that he has to say, and you're going to learn a lot. Dr. Shrand, the anger is a topic everyone can relate to. I mean, anger at times can feel exciting, dangerous, mysterious, primal, but it rears its uncontrolled head in our modern day world. When it happens like that, it can change people's lives in a really mighty way, which we see in news reports every day. Here in Washington, as a matter of fact, in the suburban area, we had a situation where a father was killed by his stepson who didn't like a request that he made to help him with some housework. Now, that's real anger. Tell me
Yeah,
something. You, in your book, you're asking the question or answering the question: can we learn to control anger? Not only our anger, but other people's anger as well. Talk to me about that, if you will.
you know, what a sad story that you've just told me about this father and his stepson. There is a difference, however, between anger and aggression. And what you're really describing is how anger can lead to the enactment of anger, which is aggression. So anger is a feeling, perfectly normal part of who we are as human beings. I mean, we have carried anger with us as part of our evolution for millions of years. It's been a very important part of our survival. But aggression is what really gets us in trouble. A feeling has never hurt anyone. It's what you do with your feelings that can really hurt people. And so outsmarting anger is a way to use the more modern part of our brain to really have an influence and take charge of this much more ancient part of our brain. When we were evolving, we never threw anything away. We just built basically one chunk of brain on top of the other. So the limbic system, which is this ancient part of our brain, is responsible for emotions, for impulses, feelings, for memories. But the new brain, the neocortex, neo is new, cortex is brain, is really responsible now in part for thinking, for analyzing information, solving problems, executing the plan, and then anticipating the consequence of that plan. So if the listening audience, just for a moment, can take the palm of your hand and put it on your forehead, right behind that forehead is your prefrontal cortex. And how many times have we done something impulsively and sort of slapped our forehead and gone, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly it. It's almost as if you're jump-starting your prefrontal cortex.
Huh. That's very interesting.
So
So,
the anger is normal. Normal, normal, normal.
okay.
We should take that anger, though, and decide what we want to do with it. And think how many positive things anger has really produced in our world. You know, the civil rights movement is part of anger. Mothers Against Drunk Driving, or MAD, was because mothers said it is wrong to be able to drive drunk. So anger can be incredibly productive.
Hmm. So when you're talking about it from that perspective, I'm glad you kind of explained that what you call the PFC, that prefrontal cortex, and I must say that that is something that we do. I mean, there's even a commercial, and it's for the old oh, I could have had a V8, and they're slapping themselves,
That's right.
going, oh, I could have had a V8. It's like,
That's
duh,
right.
why did I do that? Well, now you've kind of explored a little bit the origins and the purpose of anger, and you've talked about the positive things that can come out of anger, but you're also talking about how to recognize and rate the many forms of anger that we all experience and why we get angry. Can we talk about that for a little bit?
The first step in being able to control your anger and really manage it is to recognize that it's there, because recognition is a thinking function. So when you recognize rage, you're immediately shifting your brain to that prefrontal cortex. But it's very important to understand a definition of anger so that you can then go through the next 7 steps. The first step really is to recognize that you're angry. And we know what that feels like.
Right.
You get this heartbeat may increase, your muscles may tense, your face may flush. What you really are doing is activating the fight branch of the fight-flight response. And the fight branch is an approach emotion. Anger is an approach emotion. So the definition of anger that we use in the book is anger is an emotion designed to change the behavior of somebody else. We get angry when we want somebody to do something different, start doing something or stop doing something. So whenever you're feeling angry or see someone who's angry, the first thing that I'm going to suggest you think about is, what does this person, or what do I want to see different? Something has happened that they want this to change, and they're going to approach you, or you will approach them with the intention to change. This terrible example that you give about this little boy killing his father, I mean, it's a bit extreme, I must say.
Right.
But if the father was asking the boy to do something that the boy didn't want to do, the boy will activate anger because he feels some sense that the father has more power. And this actually gets to the second step. The second step, after you recognize rage, and before we do that, let me just say, remember, anger is on a spectrum of emotion. There's that horrendous, murderous rage that we feel, but anger can also be smaller things, irritations, annoyances. And what I would ask the listening audience to do is to try to come up with a series of words that represent your own anger scale. And in Outsmarting Anger in the book, we go through this with some depth. But just think how many different words there are for anger. You may feel a little irritated if somebody cuts you in line while you're getting coffee, compared to some outrage at work where a coworker maybe has subverted, one of your ideas and taken it to the boss.
Right. Right.
So it's the range.
Okay.
So recognize rage, first step.
And when you're
Next step. Next step. Why do we get angry? Basically, human beings, like any other animal, want 3 things. We want food, shelter, and the ability to reproduce. And for humans, we sort of expand this in the book to the 3 R's: resources, residence, and relationships. And resources are things like, your phone, money, clothing, all sorts of material things. Residence is not just where you live, but where you work, the church that you may be going to, the country that you live in. And you can appreciate that the residence that you have some affinity for. So it becomes part of your group, and you feel that you are part of that in-group. The problem, of course, is that whenever we have an in-group, it's countered to an out-group.
Hmm.
And we'll get to that later on because that can be a real source of tension and anger.
Okay.
And then relationships. We know the familiar ones are the relationships that you have with people in your family or people at your place of worship or people where you're working. But we actually have relationships with complete strangers all the time. When you're walking down the street, you may have a relationship with a stranger that you just glance at. When you're going to get your bagel or your donut or your lunch or your dinner, there's somebody who may be serving you that you have a relationship with. We have relationships with strangers in the world all the time. So one reason people get angry is they think that that other person has more than they do. They have more resources or safer residence or better relationships, and they get angry through envy.
I was
They
going to ask
envision
you.
envy. Say again?
I was going to ask you. That sounds like envy or
Yes,
jealousy.
that's it. It's
Okay.
envy, envy. So the second step is envision envy. Am I angry because I think somebody is at an advantage over me? They have more than me, and I want that to change, so I want to bring them down. But you can imagine if you are envious of somebody else, they will become suspicious of you. They will become suspicious that you see them with more power, and they are going to worry that you will try to take something from them. That will make them angry because anger is an emotion designed to change the behavior of somebody else. They will get angry to try to stop you from taking something from them. So, recognize rage, envision envy, and sense suspicion are the first three steps about your anger. But the reality is, we've all basically developed the same brain.
Hmm.
So if you're getting angry about things, other people are getting angry about the same things. That's really interesting because now we have an understanding of what this anger is about. Once you understand why somebody else is getting angry, you have an opportunity to actually manage their anger. Because, well, if you think about it, it's not really your anger that gets in the way of your success.
Hmm.
Very often it's somebody else's anger that gets in the way of your success. So the next four steps are how you can manage somebody else's anger, diffusing it, so everyone can be more successful.
And see, that's the thing that I really found so interesting that we're getting ready to get into because many times we were taught growing up that we can only control how we behave, and that if we do the right thing, if we behave ourselves in the right way, then regardless of how someone else may misbehave or whatever mores they may have been taught in their background, we know that we can take the high road. But what you're saying is, guess what? It's not necessarily that we are helpless in terms of dealing with someone else and helping to change the way that they are going to be either interacting with us or the level of anger that they may express. So I'm settling in here. Let's get into the next set of steps.
What you're saying is so important because the reality is we are all so interconnected in our world. We are so interconnected that we control no one, but we influence everyone. And this is really an important thing for people to recognize. You control no one, but you influence everyone. I mean, that is an enormous amount of responsibility. You get to choose what kind of influence you want to be. And that gets to the fourth step. The fourth step now takes what you know about your brain and the limbic system and the prefrontal cortex, and you can begin to influence another person's brain. You project peace.